Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks. Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try and make your world a little weirder. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Niall.
And it is officially way past spooky o'clock.
Yeah, we're officially in spooky o'clock. I was literally right before we hit record. We were looking at. I've been watching a bunch of horror movies. It's really, really the great season for this stuff. So if you're in the Discord and have favorite horror movies, go ahead and throw them in there.
Absolutely.
We'd love to fucking talk about horror movies.
I did. I looked up the movie Terrifier after you were talking about it, and because I'd heard of it. It appeared, I think, on Shudder, which is a service that I subscribe to, and so it's been on my I've heard of it. It's on my list, and I turned it on because it was just the whole thing's on YouTube for some reason.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I turned it on, and I skipped forward in the movie by I don't know how much, 30, 45 minutes, something like that. And I immediately came to the scene with the woman being sawed in half. And I was like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, good God.
It's that's a nasty one.
That's fucked up. I think a real sicko made this movie. I'm gonna tell you something right now. That's some sicko shit.
Yeah, out of all the stuff I've watched, that wouldn't be my first recommendation, but it is an interesting it's an interesting setup with the villain of the movie, Art the Clown, to be in. It seems like Terrifier 2 expands it a little bit and maybe is a bit more of a functional horror movie.
Hell yeah.
But
we both got to watch We're All Going to the World's Fair, which is I don't know whether you could just flat out call it full-blown horror.
I think it is.
Okay. But I will say I really enjoyed that a lot.
Oh, that movie rules.
It did the movie ended and kind of left me feeling sick to my stomach, which those are my favorite kinds of movies. So
yeah.
Yeah, Jesus, but I gotta catch up on my horror watching. So.
Yeah, I'm beating you this year.
I know. I need. It's just been a lot going on in my life.
Yeah, you've already moved, so I figure I've had a bit more time.
I did get to do one of the optimal horror movie experiences and watch The Thing outside around a campfire, which was great. In Germany, Das Ding.
Yes. One of my favorite, I don't normally, there are 2 international posters I want. The Japanese poster for a few dollars more, it looks dope
really
as
cool.
Shit.
Yeah.
And then a German The Thing poster, just so I can hang it up and have Das Ding.
Das Ding makes me laugh, but there's also there is a Magic the Gathering card that is in the horror themed set.
Okay.
And it's called The Thing in the Ice. And if I remember correctly, in German, it's Das Ding in der Eis or something like that. And that makes me laugh every time too. So it's just expand on Das Ding a little bit for.
Sometimes if you don't know other languages and try to read them, they come off kind of funny.
It's so funny to be not English speaking.
Yeah, it's so funny to only know one language, you know?
It's great being an ignorant American, let me tell you. Niall.
Yeah, what's up?
I was looking around. It was one of those weeks where I just fell into the rabbit hole of 10 different things.
I hate those weeks. I both hate and love them.
Yeah.
because like you come up with a lot of good ideas for future episodes, but at the same time you just spend so much time doing stuff that's not actually getting you closer to recording for the week.
Exactly. I basically I found like so many different things. I'm like, I'm bookmarking that. I'm bookmarking that. That's a great idea. I got to talk about that. I need to talk about that.
Yeah.
But then I settled on something immediately when I saw its name. I saw the name of this thing and I was like, well, I can't help myself. And I also kind of realized something.
Okay.
I'm beginning to sort of realize that one of my favorite places, if we're going to stay domestic, if we're going to be in the United States talking about weird stuff, I think I've narrowed down one of my like top 3 favorite places to hear about weird bullshit.
Okay. What's this place?
It's the southern United States, especially Louisiana, especially specifically New Orleans.
Okay. There is like a certain vibe that happens with a lot of those things. There are definitely like regional differences. You've got your northeastern, like southern, like northeastern, like stuffy kind of 13 original colonies type ghosts that are just like, oh, these might as well just be British aristocrats.
Yeah.
And then it kind of spreads into different vibes around the country. And so New Orleans ghosts, I feel like you'd get kind of a weird mix of a couple things, because there's like
a lot of stuff down there. Like,
yeah, because everything about Creole and everything is like a mix of a bunch of different kind of influences and cultures and everything.
Yes, that is which I'm going to kind of touch on here at the start, because it kind of sets the scene for where the story of this creature comes from. So this week, I investigated a cryptid whose name I simply couldn't ignore after I heard it. This is the Grunch.
The Grunch?
This is the Grunch.
Okay, not the Gunch, not the gun-wielding Grinch.
No.
But the Grunch. So
this is a meal between lunch and some other meal that we have yet to discover.
And it's when you eat grape nuts for breakfast as much as you can, so to the point where the meal just becomes called grape nuts.
Yeah.
So it's between grape nuts and lunch. It's Grunch.
Which that's another really great thing about
Grunch nuts.
Grunch nuts. That's another really great thing about grape nuts is like, one, it's the name of the food.
Yeah.
And 2, when you're having like a serious episode about eating grape nuts, then you're grape nuts. You're nuts. You're nuts about. You see what
nuts
I'm saying?
About grape nuts.
Nuts
so you're a grape nutter.
You're grape nuts.
You're a grape nutter.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that's really one of the beautiful things that
it is.
Look, about grape nuts.
The English language is a beautiful thing, and you can come up with some really stupid shit in it.
The English language, which is the language that I personally refer to as normal language. So
fuck all you non-English speakers. We're coming out hard in this episode.
Just tying it back.
Your languages sound silly. Das ding.
Das ding.
And fuck all of no. We love everyone.
So yeah. Also, this cryptid was like a little weird to look up, because a lot of Google searches wanted to redirect me to the Grinch.
I bet. Yeah, how hard was it to get Google to not just like show you fucking Dr. Seuss?
It wanted me to see the Grinch. There was also like some weird thing called a Grunch of Giants that I didn't even click through, that like I think is some sort of book about I don't know.
A group of giants is called a grunch?
Maybe that is. It's kind of like a flock of seagulls, or
a murder of crows.
A murder of crows. There's a grunch of giants. I'm going to use that from now on.
I like things like that are hyper specific, because if you actually catalog it in a way in your brain, you're just going to bring it up at the most random ass time when someone happens to mention a giant in like 3 months from now.
Well, I'm fucked because I play Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, true.
So like, that's gonna happen.
You crest the top of a hill, and as you look out into the world, and you see a grunch of giants. Table looks at you like you're a fucking.
Everybody's
nutter.
gonna be like, "What the fuck?" And it's like, "Oh, okay, hold on, let me explain."
Yeah, let me explain this thing from the podcast that you all
Yeah.
should be listening to, because you're our fucking friends.
That's right. But, yeah, and let me take a moment here to shame my friends who are not listening to the show. Shame on you. That's all. They're not listening, so they don't know.
Yeah.
But no, the Grunch Nile. It's fun to say, right? Like,
Yeah, it's fun to hear.
The Grunch is said to be New Orleans' own El Chupacabra.
Oh, okay.
So it's not an especially large creature. It's said to be somewhere between 3 and 4 feet tall. It's described as being a cross between a dog and a reptile. And in many of the descriptions that I've seen, it has like this scaly reptilian skin. In some accounts, it's covered in fur. And this like reptilian skin is kind of one of the main traits that lets it stand out from the actual chupacabra.
Okay.
People will also throw in the phrase goat-like to describe the creature, but like I've seen very few illustrations that adhere to the goat version of this thing.
You've looked at pics and you do not see goat.
No, I mean Maybe
they think it's the greatest of all time.
Oh, that could be.
Maybe they think this is like the best cryptid.
Goat Grunch.
Yeah, this is the goat. This Grunch is the goat.
We're gonna say things like goat Grunch in this episode, and it's going to like you say it enough times it no longer makes any sense to your brain.
Here's the thing that's going to happen, because it has happened from this podcast many times. I will just drop something in conversation with Jules, and she doesn't listen to every episode of this podcast.
Again, for shame.
But like, because I record these with you regularly, it just is factored into my life. So
Same.
there's no reason in my brain for me to remember that she wouldn't know what I'm talking about. So I'll just sometimes reference things that happened on this podcast, and she'll look at me like I'm a fucking lunatic.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say goat Grunch, and she's just going to like look at me like I grew a third head.
Yeah.
And that's just what's going to happen.
She's going to wonder why you suddenly developed a craving for grape nuts too.
Yeah, she's gonna ask me what I want for dinner sometime, and I'm gonna say goat Grunch, and she's just gonna like be very confused.
Yeah, honey, what are you feeling for Grunch? Fuck, sorry,
God damn it.
That's only a meal that I know.
That's my secret meal.
That's my secret meal.
What are you having for Grunch? That's the question. Put it in the Discord.
Yeah, that is ultimately going to be the email question of the week. Wow, really lost my train of thought. But
yeah, I'm not helping you stay on track at all here this week.
So yeah, some people will say it's like goat-like, and there are a couple depictions of it where it is a little more goat-like. Usually that's like the hairy version is goat-like. But I have here one of the most popular illustrations that I've seen of the thing that's on the more reptilian side of things.
Okay.
Reptilian's a strong word because it's not like it actually has scales. It just has scaly skin. But this is one of my favorite illustrations of it. If you can.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that look.
That's a Grunch. I'm showing Niall a Grunch right now.
I look. There's a lot of times that I see something and I have an immediate reaction of like, oh, that's like this, that's like this. The only thing that's coming to mind is it looks like it's got the same coloration as Lion Cat from Saga. However, it does not look like Lion Cat.
No. It's also honestly what it looks like is it looks like a beastie alien creature that like a cartoon alien would have in like a 90s kids action show.
You said beastie, but my mind immediately said busty, and I was trying to figure out what
this thing has. A huge fucking rack.
Yeah.
Double D's. You could slap that shit around like crazy. It is nuts.
God. So this thing, I get where it's saying like reptilian. I get where that comes from because like the way the mouth works and like what that mouth do and all that stuff. It does. It looks. I get the reptilian side of things. Yeah. I also get the kind of like
it's a chupacabra beast creature, right? But it has some traits that are it even like its legs and kind of are panther like.
Yeah, it does have like a feline type squat.
Yeah.
But then a really like maybe it's just the representation of it there, but it has a very long neck, like a very long like fucking Wobba Fett from the shoulders up look to it that I don't know what to do with.
It's it also has these like black spines or quills that kind of travel up and down its back. And yeah, like I said, it's like a lot of depictions have it with this like green scaly skin, but sometimes it has black skin. And like the chupacabra, it punctures its victims to drain blood. But the big difference here between Choops and Grunch is that the Grunch...
What are you doing today between Choops and Grunch? Because I know, look, I know we've got meetings after Grunch, but I think between Choops and Grunch, we might be able to fit in some podcasts.
Yeah, well, around Choops time, I was thinking of might have a little bit of grape nuts, pre-Grunch prep sort of thing. But the big difference between Choops and Grunch is that the Grunch's victims are said to have only one puncture hole, typically in the neck.
Okay.
So this thing will go for the neck, and as you so
it uses a straw instead of two teeth.
Yeah, it sticks a big silly straw in there, and slurps away. And it's like I said, that depiction of it. It has like this lower jaw with a large single tooth.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to be the tool of exsanguination. But then I've seen in the goat depiction, I saw one where it had like this long like tongue that was like sharp.
Oh, okay.
So this is one of those cryptids where it's kind of hard to find a fully settled upon single image of it.
Especially when you get to the lesser known and like more regional cryptids.
Yeah.
It does seem there's a lot more variance because it's just like there's not as codified a thing where people are like, no, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Everyone just kind of freeballs it. And so I've come across that too, where it's just like there's varying reports of what this thing looks like.
Yeah.
So.
It's also, I think, due in part to the fact that this creature supposedly has been around for a very long time.
Oh, okay. So it's evolved over time.
Yeah. Its eyes are said to glow a variety of different colors. That depends on the witness's account. And it's also said to howl like a wolf, scream like a banshee, and screech like an ape. And in very few stories, some people describe it as having bat-like wings and claws, but most of them don't describe that. So I would say that's probably non-canon. So
there's a period in like the late 70s, early 80s where the Grunch was experimenting with wings.
Yes.
And it realized it wasn't for them.
Not about that life.
It did have a little bit of a period where I'm just imagining this thing as like a fucking like I don't know. It just like customizes over time.
Yeah.
And so it just like goes through these phases where like the puncture is on the tongue versus a tooth. And sometimes it has wings. And so it's just like eras of you can trace it through history.
Yeah. It's like a lot of, it's like David Bowie. He's got like...
It's the David Bowie of cryptids.
Or like Tom Waits. He had a crooner phase. He had a bat wings phase. He had a non-crooner phase. Yeah. Like a lot of legendary stories of monsters in the States, tales of the Grunch are passed around by locals. And this is especially true in Nolans, where there is such a mashing together of these cultures and people. So since the 18th century, control of the territory was passed... Basically, it went from the French to the Spanish, back to the French again, and then was finally acquired by the United States in the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. And, of course, before/during all of that, Native Americans lived there. Yeah. So,
yeah, we purchased it from somebody, but
from the French, technically, who were colonizing the spot. So we've got like this city of New Orleans populated by the French, Creole French, Native Americans, Americans being the cool folks that they are, also brought slaves with them. Although I imagine so did the French. But I didn't get too deep into that whole. So it's just like there's a ton of different people in this spot specifically. And it's during this early period after control is ceded to the United States that supposedly the earliest tales of the Grunch come from. There are a couple origin stories for the creature, but the most famous one involves a Creole voodoo practitioner named Mary Catherine Laveau. And I won't get too deep into her backstory because she's worth spending time on someday. She is very interesting. And so we'll save her for another episode, I think, because and also apparently I think American Horror Story used her.
I was going to say the name sounded familiar.
Yeah.
Now I only watched the first 2 seasons of American Horror Story before I gave up on it because it just wasn't very good. But I think I've heard the name.
There's other reasons you may have heard the name.
Oh, okay.
So she was very well known around New Orleans. She was once said to, quote, have traveled the streets like she owned them.
Sorry, Ryan Murphy can fight me. Anyway, go ahead. just figured I'd like lay out something there just to.
Thank you.
Your shows suck.
Yeah. God damn. We're really calling him out.
Yeah.
First we came for Lore, now we're going for Ryan Murphy.
Look, I figure it's time for a new feud in this show.
Absolutely. Fuck you, Ryan Murphy. If you ever listen to this, it's on site.
Ratchet was entirely unnecessary and a stupid idea.
I haven't seen it, but I agree in concept. So, originally she established a beauty parlor in the city where she specifically catered to wealthier locals. And over time, there's a lot of history there with this woman, but over time she began practicing more and more like voodoo. Like she was an herbalist, but she also like she would be consulted by locals for like medical assistance and advice on a variety of subjects. And so she would supposedly employ these like magical powers. This would include things like clairvoyance and these like charmed amulets that I don't know how you pronounce it, but I think it's Gris, Gri. You know what I'm talking about? It's another voodoo thing, but she, someday I'll have to actually like learn more about how voodoo functions, but,
yeah, that's another thing that's hard to like, you have to choose your sources carefully.
Right. Yeah. It's tough. But she would be consulted on all this stuff and use these things to help her customers. And, a lot of places also kind of make mention of the fact that there was this like blend of folk Catholicism in her practices. Again, her story is genuinely really interesting. Like part of the reason this took a little extra time is like, I was just like reading about her and I was like, shit, I gotta know more. And I don't know
You said the term folk Catholicism and my brain for some reason just went, oh, like Mumford and Sons.
Exactly like Mumford and Sons.
I don't know why.
No, they're pretty folk Catholic. Yeah, Mumford and Sons was heavily inspired by Laveau. But she eventually, this is the thing that I'm like super fascinated by and I want to talk about sometime because eventually she gains the title of Voodoo Queen of Nolans.
Is that self-appointed or is that
I don't think so.
Okay.
That's what I thought was kind of amazing about this because this was an actual like title of power. It sounded to me in the area. Like it sounded like it was a very legitimate like title because the article even mentioned that there was once an attempt to quote unquote challenge her for leadership as Voodoo Queen. And there were multiple Voodoo Queens who kind of like held this power in the area and like dictated advice and like offered healing and all this stuff. So
that sounds very like I had never thought of the concept of like a voodoo queen in New Orleans, but now I want to see. I don't know, like most a TV series probably wouldn't do it justice. That is just wildly interesting, and I never thought of it.
I'm very curious to read about it now because she sounds fascinating.
Like, what kind of governing body do like the voodoo practitioners have?
I don't know if it was that official, but I honestly couldn't tell you a lot more because like
a folky title. I don't know.
I think it maybe was more folky. I didn't do too deep a dive because I was like, man, I just gotta like read about this sometime or else I'll just be on this forever.
That would be a whole other episode, but it's just that's a very intriguing prospect.
Yeah. Now you also may know of her name from being referenced a lot in music. She gets referenced by a lot of bands, but the two that I took note of was the metal band Volbeat, I guess, has a song where she's either referenced or like in the title. And then I can't believe I didn't write down the name of the song, but apparently the Get Up Kids reference her in a song. And then in 1982, check this out, the Misfits were arrested and accused of attempting to dig up the body of Laveau after a show.
Wow. Okay.
So maybe you heard about her from that too.
That's practicing what you preach, I guess. Good for them.
So. Yeah, good for them.
I'm not saying like grave robbing's a great thing, but like
no, this is the year.
That's commitment to the bit.
I think this is the year that we get really into grave robbing,
or at least advocating for it. I guess maybe that's the easier thing.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I actually want to commit the crime, but maybe I should start advocating for it.
It could be kind of like a fun time. Yeah. So our story of the Grunch has one of its origins in Mary Laveau. So from the book Louisiana Legends and More by Alan Brown, I got a lot of this information. So it says here that New Orleans has a character all of its own. Some of its legends can be found nowhere else in the country. One of these fantastic tales dates back to the city's earliest days when a deformed baby was brought to Voodoo Queen Mary Laveau. She could tell from its evil countenance that it was the spawn of the devil. She castrated the devil baby to prevent it from reproducing.
Okay.
However, as soon as its testicles fell to the floor, they turned into a male and female Grunch.
What?
Aware that Mary Laveau had killed their parent, the creatures bit and beat her, nearly taking her life.
Jesus, okay.
When she regained consciousness, her attackers had vanished. Some residents of New Orleans believe that this horrible experience with the Grunch convinced her to turn away from the quote-unquote dark side and return to her Catholic beliefs.
I mean, getting beaten up by like a devil baby's testicle creatures might have an impact on me.
It would have an impact on you. It is funny to me, though, that
I'm
it's
not sure it would turn me to Catholicism, but
no,
we're different.
It would be a cold day in hell before I become a Catholic. So, yeah, since then...
That might be the most interesting cryptid origin story I've ever heard.
It's a very weird one. It has, like I said, it has multiple origin stories. The other one is not as interesting or funny.
Fair.
But yeah, so since then, the Grunch has been sighted throughout New Orleans, and witnesses claim to have seen it running around the City Park golf course and the levees of the... I need to pause here because I realize that, like, here in the United States, when we have like a town or a city that's like a borrowed word from like French or something, usually we fuck it up in our own unique American way. The first thing that comes to mind is how in Scotland, it's the city of Edinburgh. Yeah. But here in Indiana, it's Edinburgh.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right at all. And if I mispronounced it, I apologize. It has been seen around the City Park golf course and the levees of the Chalmette National Battlefield. It has also been seen racing across Highway 90 in the Luling, Bout, and Paradise areas. Since Hurricane Katrina, the monster has reappeared in the Lakeview area where it has been mistaken for a raccoon. Legend has it, though, that Grunch Road was its preferred hunting ground. The old road, composed of shells and sand, was located near the community of Little Woods in eastern New Orleans. It snaked its way through the massive water oaks to Hain Boulevard. So...
There's a Grunch Road?
There's a Grunch Road. And I'll elaborate on it a little bit, but it's...
Are there houses on Grunch? Could I live on Grunch Road?
You could technically, but I wouldn't recommend it. One, because the Grunch lives there and it likes to kill people, supposedly. And two, it's kind of just like a dilapidated goes nowhere, like in the sort of like forest.
Gotcha.
So you're kind of shit out of luck in both regards.
So if I want to live off the grid, maybe I could go move to Grunch Road.
I guess so. But let's talk a little bit more about that area because that's where its other origins kind of come from. Because here we've got this alternate origin story for the Grunch. It's, like I said, it's not quite as fun and folkloric as the story of the Voodoo Queen and the Devil Baby, but it is another part of the story. Also, I kind of want to mention here briefly on a tangent. The Devil Baby is another well-established piece of folklore in New Orleans. So the Devil Baby's existence is supposedly owed to Laveau attempting a voodoo curse for unrequited love on behalf of one of her customers. And the story goes that this led to a scary devil baby being born, which it's like the spawn of the devil.
Yeah.
However, the thing that I was reading, and I'll have to do more research into this because it all ties in with Laveau and things like that, is that it's possible that tales of the devil baby came from the birth of a harlequin baby.
Okay.
So that's the thing I'm going to have to unpack when because the devil baby is like an established like ghost in oh God, what's the big road in New Orleans that
on Prospect Street?
No, the one named after alcohol.
Oh, Bourbon Street.
Bourbon Street.
Yeah.
Thank you. I couldn't come up with Bourbon, but I think that there is a Bourbon Street devil baby ghost.
Oh, interesting.
But
It would get lost amongst all the hurricane, and I mean that as the drink, and people trying to get you to come in and see strippers.
Yeah. The baby kind of, honestly, it's like also a little baby, so it's like kind of like, knee height, so you're just like not even noticing this little ghost running around your feet.
I've walked down Bourbon Street. It's very loud, and it would be very hard to see a little baby around.
Bourbon Street is one of those places that is kind of like Las Vegas to me, where it's like I kind of want to experience it once, but the idea of going to Bourbon Street does not sound super fun to me.
New Orleans is cool. I would recommend.
I bet it's
a fun time.
It seems cool,
but Bourbon Street is especially weird to walk down with your parents.
Yeah.
That happened.
I've heard some pretty intense stories about Bourbon Street. It's just like hearing about it makes me think about going to Vegas and like having people on the street like accosting me every 30 seconds for like.
Yeah, if you're easily overwhelmed, these are bad places to go.
Yeah, I got invited to so many sex limos in Vegas. It was the scariest.
Sex limo?
Yes, that was like the thing. It was like you pay for a big ride. You pay for like, I don't know exactly what it was, but the idea was like, yeah, you're paying for a limo ride plus you probably have sex with like escorts or something.
But
they were like, they do that thing where they like flip the cards in your face, and I was like,
I know about the cards. I didn't know what the limo stuff. That's interesting. Okay,
yeah, it was super weird. I don't know if it's like if it's all the rage now, but it was when I went. So, so it's. One of the things that I notice is that it's only with the Grunch's origin tale that it talks about Laveau like castrating and killing the child and creating and like severing the devil baby and stuff, because in accounts about this devil baby born from a voodoo curse, Laveau actually takes care of the child as a mother because nobody else would. The mother dies during childbirth and the father runs off in fear and abandons the baby. And so Laveau just like takes care of the child. There's a whole lot more to the story, but that's for another episode. So
fair enough.
Anyways, as for an alternate origin story for the Grunch, legend has it that at one time a small group of, I don't think these terms are good anymore, but I'm quoting this directly. A small group of albinos and dwarves lived out there in Little Woods, which was like a wooded area nearby Grunch Road. Because of its isolated location, it was also a favorite spot for teenagers to party and make out. Many of them reported seeing flashing lights and hearing eerie cries, which they took as evidence of the Grunch's existence. Stories also circulated about the disappearance of curiosity seekers foolish enough to drive off Hayne Boulevard in search for the monster.
Hayne Boulevard?
Yeah, Hayne.
Okay.
Which is, again, a nearby road.
So this thing, just like, if you go out there trying to find it, it might just fucking kill you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This story of quote-unquote misfits and outcasts from New Orleans society, the albinos and dwarves, it's often used as another origin for the Grunch. And it's not a pretty one. It's a pretty ugly story, but like, when I tell it to you, it sounds like something that had to have come about like a few decades ago in like people swapping tales about the Grunch. But it's said that these people, these outcasts, were feared as creations of the devil in New Orleans back in the like 19th century. And so they ended up fleeing out to Little Woods to escape persecution from society. There's a lot of one of the articles that I was reading about this stuff kind of was like, much like the Harlequin baby thing, there was this fear of things that were outside the norms of society, at least in like physical appearance.
Yeah, I mean, it's the basis for freak shows. Like,
yes,
have you ever watched Freaks, the like black and white movie?
Watched a significant portion of it so long ago now, but part of it, yes, I'm
really
aware
good.
of it. Yeah,
like that movie's great. Just it's interesting. It just is like actual circus performers.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
And so that's the idea. And I do think that a couple of the stories, it talks about this like group of outcasts, and some of the stories were talking about it like they were like circus performers.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on where you're reading about it, but I'm telling you the most popular version of the story.
Gotcha.
So they flee to Little Woods. And the legend is that these people that had self-banished to reclusion in Little Woods which is where Grunch Road would end up being. These people begin inbreeding. And the inbreeding went on long enough that their physical deformities sort of combined until Grunches were born. And the Grunch offspring are said to have gone mad and would kill anybody who would get too close to their home. And so, Grunch Road.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That is a very different interpretation of the legend.
It's
a very different legend.
Yeah, it's another one of those things too where I just like wish I could find like a local historian who knows about this stuff.
Because I'm guessing like both of those probably have a history of like where they would like where and when they came from.
Yeah.
And it's just two different versions.
Plus,
of things.
I can only imagine that somebody who has been labeled the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans has a mythology built up around them.
100%.
I mean, like, look, I'm sorry, I'm a skeptic. I don't think that 2 testicles turn into grunches. I'm just being honest with you, listeners. But it is a really fascinating folklore backstory.
Yeah.
So another further offshoot from this particular story claims that this outcast group in the woods, this is like the natural progression. Again, I'm assuming that this came about in the 80s when people were talking about this creature, but they say that this outcast group in the woods would torture and sacrifice animals in satanic rituals. So,
yeah, a little just because, look, they're outsiders of humanity, therefore they must be Satanists.
Of course.
And they have to hate children and Christianity and also apple pie.
Yep.
So.
Well, no, they really like that.
Oh, they do?
I'm sorry. That's the opposite of yes ending.
Yeah, it was, but it's fine. You know, look, sometimes you got to know but.
That's right. And these Satanists love apple pie. So through these rituals, they entered a contract with the devil, selling their souls to gain mystical protection from outsiders. And this story also comes with a bit more of Grunch lore. So if you should, supposedly, this is the legend. This is the thing that like I think is one of the most enduring ideas with the Grunch, that every article I said would like almost like bullet point period their article with a statement about this.
Okay.
If you should travel near Grunch Road and you see an injured goat, don't try to help the animal. It's a trap set up by the Grunch to lure unsuspecting animal lovers to their doom. And some of those stories are also just like, oh, if you see a goat, it's the Grunch.
Fair. So like it'll just it's either shape-shifting or it's just like a trap.
Yeah.
Okay. The trap.
Ambiguous.
Yeah. The trap is interesting. I guess so just, you know, don't stop to try to help a goat in New Orleans. It's just a good travel tip. We'll get that in all the travel guides and you'll be good to go.
Yeah.
And don't venture down Grunch Road too late at night.
Don't even bother going to Grunch Road. It doesn't sound like there's anything exciting happening there.
What if there was like a really nice, like reasonably priced, like nice bistro down there?
Okay. Well, then I guess I'm going to Grunch Road, Niall.
Have some good beignets and everything. Just like fucking sit there and have some chicory coffee and some beignets.
Yeah,
you know?
you can go check out the amazing Grunch Road Bistro, but watch out. So
the prices are low because they try to factor in the danger of you showing up.
They're losing at least 2, maybe 3 customers a week, but it's worth it. The beignets are to die for.
Best beignets in the city.
Oh my god,
better than both Cafe Du Mont and Cafe Beignet.
That's right. Which is crazy to think about.
Yeah,
think about it. That's nuts. So sightings of the Grunch go back decades. According to reports from New Orleans sanitation workers, the monsters scavenge through garbage cans and have even run after garbage trucks in the Grunch Road area and along East Haines Boulevard.
Seeing one of these things chase after a garbage truck would
be fun.
Maybe fundamentally change you.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I didn't finish my sentence. Fundamentally change you is what I was going to say.
I'm glad we're on the same page.
So, witness descriptions of the monster vary, but they share a few common elements. The goat-like beast is said to stand between 3 and 4 feet tall. A trail of sharp spines line its back. Some describe its skin as having a leather-like texture. Others say it has a black, scaly hide. It is covered with long fur and goat-like markings. The color of its eyes varies as well depending on the witness. They have been described as red, orange, or blue. The monster, this is probably one of the most interesting aspects of it to me.
Okay.
The monster possesses the human ability to open doors and use tools.
Oh,
So we got
does it have
Grunch
thumbs?
tools. I don't. It doesn't look like it has thumbs in a couple of the depictions I saw of it, but
most of those things
must.
that it would be able to, that it's saying it's capable of doing,
Well,
would require thumbs.
Unless you have Grunch tools.
Fair.
So
it's the hit new
Far Side strip.
Far Side strip. It's Grunch tools.
So
they're very palmable. Like it just you work with
it's sort of
4 fingers and palm.
Yeah, it two hands the tools too sometimes. So
yeah,
kind of puts them in between.
It's like trying to use tools with oven mitts on.
Yeah.
You know?
Picture a hoof with like a palm situation. It's hard to imagine, but that's kind of what we're working with here.
Yeah. Oh fuck. Okay.
The monster's blood-curdling howl is said to resemble that of a wolf. Its appearance is always heralded by a nauseating stench. So this is kind of like another
stinky boy.
He's a nasty, stinky freak.
Okay.
And this is one of those sort of like alternate versions of it, because I kind of upfront gave you the reptilian version. So
do they both stink?
The reptilian one, I didn't read about it stinking, but for all I know, it could smell nasty.
What if it just smells like ball sweat due to its origin?
Well, that depends. Some people might like that smell.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. To some people, the pheromones in that would be quite pleasant, but it would be fitting with the origin.
That's fair.
Coming from
I
devil baby's
saying,
testicles.
Yeah, maybe it smells like just absolute grundle
crotch
filth.
Sweat.
Yeah. So, another weird tidbit I saw about the Grunch that appeared in exactly one blog post and nowhere else is that one legend supposedly claims that Grunches can be supernaturally created. If someone is bitten by a devil baby on the full moon, if someone is bitten by a devil baby on the full moon, that person will werewolf-like transform into a Grunch.
And will it transform back, or is it stuck as a Grunch?
Didn't say. So I'm going to say stuck.
Well, like if it's on the full moon, then I feel like it's a werewolf situation, but maybe not. Like maybe it's just you on the first full moon after you get bitten by a fucking Grunch, you get turned into one.
Yeah, maybe
that'd be weird. Okay. So is Grunchism communicable? I guess would be the question.
I don't know, because the way it sounded to me is that a Grunch is going to kill you, but a devil baby will bite you and turn you into a Grunch. So it's like Grunches are like looking to murder and eat things.
So there's no such thing as like airborne Grunchism.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No. I think Grunchism is purely spread through devil baby saliva.
Okay.
So, yeah, I kind of like read that little piece of lore and I was like wondering like, well, did somehow, somewhere, somebody mixed up Grunch and Rougarou lore?
Yeah, there's definitely a vibe of that.
Because that's maybe the most famous like cryptid creature in New Orleans is the Rougarou, and it's essentially werewolf. It's lycanthropy. So I kind of wonder if that there were crossed wires there at some point.
Yeah. Although like Rougarou isn't straight up like, it doesn't have the changing thing. It gets changed by eating human flesh.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's a progression over time.
But Rougarou also just kind of gets lumped in with werewolves also.
Does, yeah.
So like maybe, I don't know. It's hard to say. I have a few fun stories of encounters with the Grunch.
Oh shit, good.
My main source is the Haunted New Orleans Tours website about Grunch Road. So here's what it has to say.
Do they have tours of Grunch Road?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Do you get to be armed?
No. Well, you cannot. It's a protected species.
You can't open carry.
Yeah, you cannot blow down a fucking Grunch. So, one student and his girlfriend, thinking the little wooded road a good place to get cozy for a night out, pulled into Grunch Road out of sight of the main highway and turned off their lights. With only the glow of the radio providing light, the two teens went quickly to work on their own particular night moves.
What does this have to do with like a mid 80s fucking movie with, man, it would be great if I could think of the actor's name at the moment.
Oh, I think
Gene Hackman.
I think that
Night Moves is like a mid 80s Gene Hackman movie.
Oh, no, I think they're referring to sex here, Niall.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I always think of Gene Hackman first when it should be sex.
Yeah.
It's just how it works.
Gene Hackman and sex should be closely related in your mind.
Yeah, they share like a synapse in my brain.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Yeah, so night moves. That's another term that I'm going to keep in my brain forever. So it wasn't long, however, before their passion was interrupted by terror. It began placidly enough, just a feeling of unease with the encompassing darkness and the incessant chirping of the crickets and night creatures. Soon, it was the oppressive silence and the bad 70s rock song. Okay.
Wow, a little bit of editorializing
yeah,
in this story.
Say,
not a fan, or what? Are we more of an 80s fan here?
Yeah. Then it was a shriek, and the teens sat bolt upright in the back seat of their car from their night moves. From outside, all they could hear was the rustling of brush and the swaying of bushes in the pitch blackness around them. Soon they were alarmed by the sounds of grunting and snuffling, which was the next door car where they were also practicing their night moves. No, that's a joke that I made.
Oh, really? That's not in the story?
No. A guttural call, like one animal calling to another, was all it took to propel the teens over the front seat. They started the car, and it seemed just in time as out of the woods, a white arm lurched for the passenger's side door. Screaming into reverse, the car lunged out of the woods, and when they finally reached the safety of the teenage girl's home, she was in shock. All she could say was red, over and over, red, the color of albino eyes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So is this like an albino grunch?
I think what it's saying is it's acknowledging the origin story of the inbred albino dwarves, which again, I don't feel good about saying.
Yeah.
I don't know what the proper, because I think albino is not a great term.
Is it?
Also,
okay.
Maybe, I don't know.
It's fair.
I should have Googled this shit.
Yeah. I mean, hey, look, there's a lot of dicey stuff we tackle in this podcast.
That's true. I don't think I've ever sunk lower than I've ever done when I did the I keep wanting to say myxomatosis, but that's the Radiohead song. Toxoplasmosis. Thank you.
I got you.
Thank you. So yeah. But it was when people started disappearing down Grunch Road that everyone finally took notice. It started with a goat. A goat was spotted wandering around the spot where Grunch Road intersected with Haynes Boulevard. A well-meaning motorist would slow down, not wanting to kill the animal. Invariably, the motorist would get out of the car to see if there was a way to secure the animal or to lead it off the road. And invariably, the goat would lead them away from the highway and into the darkness of Grunch Road. A woman who lived near the Lake Pontchartrain pumping station reported her husband missing on a Monday night from a weekend fishing trip in Littlewoods. The New Orleans police were summoned to take all the information they could, and a squad car was dispatched to patrol Haynes Boulevard in search of some sign of the missing man. What they found was his abandoned car, trailer and boat still attached, driver's side door still open at the entrance to the infamous Grunch Road. There was no sign of the man and no sign of a goat, but his haul of trout and sheephead were rank in a cooler in the boat. It is not known how this bizarre situation would have affected a Title Max loan on the man's car. Thank you for the extra tidbit there.
Yeah.
Since the vehicle was recovered but the driver was lost, it was probably the wife's responsibility to pay off any liens or Title Max loans on her husband's vehicle. I don't... Why is this?
This is some really unnecessary information. It really, I mean, look, it just wants you to sympathize with the widow who had to take up the financial burden of this truck.
Her grunched husband.
My husband got grunched, and all I have to do is pay. I still have to pay off his truck. It's just, oh man.
More and more husbands are getting grunched these days.
Look, Biden, if nothing else, can you give us grunch loan forgiveness?
Listen, Jack.
Grunch-based loan forgiveness is really important thing to run on.
I'm going to forgive all the debt from the Grunch attacks. All the husbands in the Grunch attacks are going to be zippity-doo-dah. Fixed loan forgiveness, no Title Max. Wives will be skipping happier than a jump rabbit.
I'm not sure even you know what you're saying
I don't
at
know
this point.
at all. I have no idea.
I think Biden would think Grunch is a flavor of ice cream.
I was trying to channel Biden.
It's okay. He doesn't know what he's saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So he was the first to disappear, but not the last. And finally, police gave in to the demands of local residents and took a ride down Grunch Road.
Did you see that thing where he was giving Elton John an award?
I think I did, but I don't remember what he said. It was something really fucked up,
The way he said it, it basically came off as like Elton John being responsible for like AIDS in America.
Oh, no.
It was like that's not actually what he said or what he meant at all, but like it was just this like really awkward turn of phrase that was meant to be a joke and didn't come off very well.
Christ.
Yeah, it's
I love my pudding for brains president. So what they found was never documented in any police report, but firsthand reports from the officers themselves confirmed at least the worst fears about who was living back there. Red eyes peered from the trailer windows and dwarves huddled around trash fires looked up warily. But beyond the unusual occupants, nothing out of the ordinary was found. But this didn't keep the legend from growing, and the sightings of the goats along Haynes Boulevard continued well into the 1980s when progress and expansion tore the Greenwoods down and drove out the remnant society that had grown in secret at the dead end of Grunch Road.
Dead end of Grunch Road is a very interesting phrase. That just really took me off guard.
It's kind of like cellar door.
It is, it's like Dead End Drive.
Yeah. 1313 Dead End Drive or whatever.
Monsters?
I think that's
Or is that Addams Family?
I was thinking of like the board game.
Oh, okay.
But maybe it is a thing in one of those.
How many dead goats were found on the side of this road? Like, for it to be this much of the like lore, that seems like a weird, like, where are these goats coming from?
They're
from like the community there? Is that what's happening?
Maybe it's the people living in Littlewoods are like raising goats. I mean, I have no idea.
That's just like, that's like a weirdly specific, but like probably easily trackable thing, which they probably weren't tracking at the time. But especially in the 80s, I feel like a bunch of reports of like dead goats on the side of the road would be like local lore or something.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. Maybe I don't know what New Orleans, like outskirts of New Orleans is like, but maybe there's just
a bunch of
goat stuff going on out there.
Maybe.
It's like
it might be a real goat-filled area.
Veritable goat situation down there. I don't know. Yeah, to this day, however, local residents warn if you see a stray goat, Jesus Christ, stray goat. If you see a stray goat waiting on the side of the road in Old Littlewoods, don't stop. Whatever you do, don't stop.
Okay. I'm not sure I've ever stopped for a goat.
I technically did. Well, no, it was a sheep. I stopped when I was in Faish, Isla. I stopped
to let goats go by.
To let a flock of sheep go by, because like we were just like on this little island with a ton of sheep, and they don't give any shits about our car coming through. Yeah, it is technically their island. Yeah, so it was kind of fun though. Sheep are cute. So are goats. Really, I don't know. I like animals.
I don't have anything against goats. I just like wouldn't. I don't typically stop driving because I see a goat.
If I saw a goat on the side of the road, I would probably stop and just point and be like, "Oh my God, there's a goat." Well, I'm not doing this at Grunch Road now. I'm saying anywhere else. If there just happens to be a goat, I'll get excited and point out the goat and stop and look at it. So I touched on it briefly before, but one of the theories surrounding the Grunch is that it resurfaced after Hurricane Katrina in 2005.
Yeah, what's that about?
Due to its habitat getting destroyed.
Oh, so it had like its home was around. So like it kind of settled into its home over time.
Yeah, it had settled into a particular area.
Okay.
And I have personally never read, or at least don't recall having read, a cryptid story where like the cryptid's habitat gets completely uprooted on this level and like causes it to be seen in completely different places because of it. I've never heard this before. Like the closest I could think of is like the Abaguchi getting like taken from South America and brought to West Virginia.
Right.
A couple episodes back. Like that's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, and like that could be a part of some animals in places they shouldn't be type.
Sure.
Like if we're considering that cryptids, like I did the Phantom Kangaroo episode.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like that does seem like an interesting I guess I've never really considered what happens when you kill the natural habitat of a cryptid.
It goes elsewhere. And the thing is, I think that sometimes cryptid stories, part of the reason that like it's really easy to like sniff out bullshit is like there's a very much a fixation on the creature itself, which makes sense because usually the cryptid is some fun, interesting idea.
Yeah.
But people sometimes like forget how vital like the habitat is when they're like sort of crafting these stories about cryptids. And I don't know, this is just like the first time where it's been like, no, they lived here and they don't live there anymore because Hurricane Katrina forced them out.
Yeah.
Crazy idea to me.
Interesting.
So it seems as if the hurricane caused stories of the creature to bubble back up to the surface. It's almost like people realize like, oh, well, Grunches live there, so like they have to be elsewhere now.
Yeah.
So its previous bout with the media popularity, although I didn't get dates on a lot of it, the thing that gets mentioned everywhere is that it was like in the 40s and 50s, there was like supposedly these stories of like teenagers going to make out point on Grunch Road and like hearing crazy shit in the woods. And then in the 80s, you start getting reports of like a creature. And then after Hurricane Katrina, you get reports of it again.
Okay.
So like its previous bout with media popularity had come in the 90s or the 80s. So there's like this long bout between the 80s and then all the way up to Hurricane Katrina in 2005. And there's this stretch where there's like not very many reports of the thing.
Huh.
So Brent Swanser, who wrote the article, The Mystery of Louisiana's Grunch Monster for the website Mysterious Universe, claims that a local woman told him about her own sighting of the creature while driving along a dark road at night. She claims to have seen a, quote, hunched over, loping figure with these like reptilian traits in the darkness. And I think this is in the wake of Hurricane Katrina that she supposedly saw this.
Okay.
So she said, quote, "This thing looked like some sort of lizard-like cross between monkey and bulldog. It was horrible. It was shuffling along with a lopsided gait and seemed to be so unnatural that I could feel the hairs on my neck stand up. It had grayish, scaly skin and a snouted face that looked to be a cross between that of an ape and an alligator. It is really hard to describe. As I approached it, it stopped and puffed up to stand on two legs at a height of about 5 feet, looking at me with those baleful eyes, and then it emitted the most unpleasant hiss I could imagine, after which it sort of lunged at me as I passed. Let me tell you, I was well on my way after that, and I have never seen anything like it since."
Hissing is new.
Yeah.
That wasn't one of the listed types of guttural noises it makes from earlier.
No.
So that's always interesting when like, so, because like after Hurricane Katrina, I could see like a bunch of, creatures being displaced and everything, and also being in various states of distress. So I like it. It's interesting seeing, did this thing change, or is it experiencing something it hasn't experienced before and is
Maybe it was
strangely?
expressing displeasure at a comedy bit. It's hard to say.
Maybe. It just didn't think that like, Dave Chappelle's funny. Like it just,
this is not in the bit. The other sightings that I could find were like just anecdotes of anecdotes, really. A resident of Harvey, Louisiana claims to have seen a Grunch eating one of her neighbor's dogs. Ding, 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 ding. Had to hit one.
Yeah, gotta get a dog death.
And it's said that because of Hurricane Katrina, a lot of Grunches were displaced into an area called Lakeview, Louisiana.
A lot of Grunches is like a weird thing to think about. Just like,
How
many of these things do they believe exist?
A bundle of Grunches. But residents in Lakeview no longer leave their pets out in the yard at night for fear that the Grunch is going to kill them. There are whispers of Grunches chasing cats down for their blood and rummaging through garbage cans. Now, the skeptical verdict about everything that I just said in this episode, Niall?
Yeah.
A mangy raccoon.
Yeah, like, sure. Why not?
Misidentified mangy raccoons. That's the very simple version.
Yeah, but that's way less fun than Grunches.
Definitely. So that's the Grunch. It's a fun one where over time it seems to have become a somewhat indeterminate creature, since no one can no one place can settle on the description of the thing.
Yeah, it now has like, I find these things with some of these smaller, very like hyper local cryptids where it turns from a specific impetus into just like a catch-all for something happening that people blame things on.
Yeah.
And so like it kind of morphs into this, it doesn't have to fit the original brief effectively. It more broadly just accounts for like people having like these superstitions or
Yeah.
this weird noises at night or seeing something in the dark, and it just like it becomes this amorphous, just like local boogeyman type thing.
Yeah. It's
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's like over decades, it's like taking all this folklore and like Katamari'd them onto
Yeah.
itself, like which is always, I think, a fun way for a cryptid to develop. I like that. It's fun.
Mhm.
And yeah,
its wings era was great, but now
but very brief.
now
and
it just
experimental.
is in the hissing. It's in the hissing era.
It's in the hissing era. And yeah, supposedly many locals do believe in the existence of this creature, but the evidence of its existence is slim to none.
I'm trying to remember if I don't remember seeing any Grunch merch when I was in New Orleans, but I also wasn't looking for it.
Yeah,
so.
I bet you saw more devil related stuff.
Oh yeah, that's devil and like hot sauce and stuff are very prevalent down there.
Yeah, and let me just show you the one photo that I saw of a supposedly documented Grunch. It is like, how like cryptid and ghost photos tend to be blurry and garbage.
Yeah.
This is one of the worst I've ever seen. It depicts nothing.
Okay.
So that's the photo that goes around.
Oh, it's just a little blur in the corner. Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing.
That is nothing.
Absolutely nothing. So, Niall, that has been the Grunch. The Grinch's funny little chupacabra brother.
Yeah. Sorry, I started going down a really awful path of like thinking about like the Grinch having a baby with Max and that turning into the Grunch and something like
okay.
Just some real fucked up things.
You wanted to talk about the Grinch fucking a dog, Niall.
I didn't want it.
Kind of sounded like you were into
I was just trying to figure out, how do you turn the Grinch into this thing? Like what is the path that leads from the the scientific definite creature of the Grinch into this cryptid?
If this is going to be a child of the Grinch, then something with the Grinch is going to have to grow 3 sizes that day.
True. The testicles.
Yeah, the balls.
Because the Grinch was also like kind of a devil baby.
Yeah.
So did they is the devil baby, is this all just a metaphor for the Grinch legend?
Yeah,
not legend,
it's you know how like there's fairy tales and then there's Grimm's fairy tales? Well, Grimm's Dr. Seuss involves the Who's rising up and castrating the Grinch.
Yeah, this is the like pre-Disneyfied version of the Dr. Seuss stories.
Yeah. That's like, and the lesson is like, let the Who's of Whoville have their Christmas gifts or they'll cut your nuts off.
Yeah, they castrated the
Turn
Grinch.
the Grinch into a eunuch.
Jesus.
But he has a beautiful falsetto now.
We had to get here at some point.
Yeah.
This is the obvious thing that we had to talk about on this episode.
Yeah.
So it took a little while, but we got there. So everyone can stop emailing us preemptively about the Grinch getting castrated in the dark version of the Dr. Seuss novel.
Right. The dog death and nut death.
Dr. Seuss wrote novels, right?
Yeah, I think he wrote... and I think he also wrote some like sexy stuff at one point.
Yeah,
right?
there was
like
pre kids book author. I think he did write some like a little lewd.
Yeah. Horton puts a sock on the door.
Horton sees a nude.
Horton sees a nude. That's way better.
Yeah,
I couldn't think of anything.
That's good. I'm here.
Well, I'm glad that we're in this exact territory, Niall, because I have a big question for you if you're ready for it. Besides the Grinch, Niall, which Dr. Seuss character do you think would make the best cryptid?
Ooh. I mean, like there's a very obvious choice, so I'm just going to get it out of the way. I mean, the Lorax is already effectively a cryptid. It is like it's both the Dr. Seuss universe version of Swamp Thing, but also basically a cryptid. It speaks for the trees. It is tied to the green. It is. Yeah,
it's very Bigfoot-like, except it's like a mini Bigfoot.
Yeah, it's like a tiny Swamp Thing.
Now, my personal one, because this is a book I read a lot as a child. My parents read it to me, I believe. My grandma, I think, read it to me. And this book is basically just a cryptozoological field guide, essentially, to me.
Okay.
Did you ever read as a child, There's a Walk-It in My Pocket?
Yes.
The one that always scared the shit out of me as a kid is the Vug Under the Rug.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
There's a part where the kid, like, they're talking about all these different creatures, right?
Yeah.
There's a part where the kid walks through, like, I want to say the dining room. I'm not like actually looking at the book right now. So like, but I'm just going by memory here. But people out there who read this maybe know what I'm talking about. There's a part where the kid like walks through like the dining room
Mm-hmm.
and there's just a gigantic something under a rug that you just don't even see what it looks like. And I don't know what it is, but that always gave me scared child Kyle.
So it's like an in-house hide behind.
Yeah, basically. I'm gonna actually Google it now because like I need to like see what that page actually looks like. And I can just show you, I guess, but it always scared me.
There is something about if this looks the way that I think it does, it makes a lot of sense with you. Yeah. So one thing that you will learn if you watch a lot of horror movies with one Kyle,
oh boy,
co-host Kyle here.
Oh God, put me on blast.
That the unknown scares you much more than seeing anything depicted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not putting you on blast here. This is just an observation. So the fact that the thing out of this that like imprinted on your brain that you were like that it scared you as a child is an amorphous shape under a rug that you don't actually see the creature.
Yeah.
It is like it's like a Rosetta Stone for Kyle. and like what scares you.
That's so true. Another one, I didn't remember its name, but another one that left an impression on me is also somewhat obscured just because you can't see what it looks like from the front. But there's the and what would you do if you meet a Jaboo? And it's just this like creature with like a beak standing there waving to the kid.
I could see that.
This book kind of freaked me out. I kind of want to look at it.
That's an interesting, like, I could see that being one that would imprint on you because it is very, like, it's a lot of things thrown at you at once and it's very playing on your imagination and
yeah.
The stuff that a child witnesses every day that could be scary because there's this unknown quantity of it. Like it plays on that kind of stuff really well. So yeah, I can see that. And the wug under the rug being a cryptid makes a lot of sense.
So yeah, I'm gonna say Vug under the rug is my choice. And when I Googled the Vug under the rug, I did just find a Reddit thread about that is titled it's r/ask science fiction. Dr. Seuss, what the fuck is the Vug under the rug? And the person saying, there's a walking in my pocket. The kid says that he is really scared of the Vug that is under his rug. What the fuck is that thing? Why is it so scary? Why is it under the rug in the first place? And the top comment says, well, it's hard to say what a Vug is. All we really know is it is larger than a human boy. The reason it's under the rug, though, is clear. Every single thing in the Seuss world is intrinsically connected to things that their name rhymes with. If your name is Bill, you likely live on a hill. If your name is Dan, you almost certainly live in your van. If your name is Kate, you likely live in a crate, and so forth.
Yeah.
So, the most Reddit answer to that question possible.
It does like make some sense with how the Seuss stuff works. I don't know. It works. Yeah, I mean, the Lorax is the easy one. I feel like there's probably better answers, but like
the Cat in the Hat's like a mysterious escaped big cat.
Yeah, true.
Like
yeah.
But
very, very realistic.
And the Grinch is basically a type of Bigfoot almost, right? Like it's kind of like a I don't know, like a skunk ape maybe.
Yeah. Because it's a very ill-mannered Bigfoot, so it's not one of the ones that's like a kind
he's
fucking
like the Copra,
yeah,
or whatever it's called. That I forget where that came from, but there's the big green Bigfoot that kidnaps people and smokes weed.
Yeah.
So
that thing,
kind of like that. I don't think Dr. Seuss ever brings up whether or not the Grinch is smoking weed, but
it's in the extended.
That's in the Grimm. That's in Grimm's Dr. Seuss tales.
You know that the Jim Carrey version was. When he wasn't undergoing like CIA anti-torture methodology to be able to like play the role. That's still the most fucked up fact maybe in that I've come across in movie history. I know it's like a somewhat known thing, but it still is absolutely buck wild to me that like the Jim Carrey's Grinch costume was so like hard to wear and so uncomfortable that he underwent like CIA anti-torture training to be able to put up with it.
Well, yeah, and that's probably why like Jim Carrey as the Grinch was always smoking weed, and that's probably why his signature catchphrase in the movie was "smoking."
Yeah. Although that was the mask, but yeah.
Well, I thought he did it in both.
maybe brought it on both. I don't remember, but that's just the idea of like a comedic actor having catchphrases that cross over between movies is actually really weird.
Yeah.
In terms of like a narrative, but it's whatever.
it's like when Mike Myers in Shrek said, "Do I make you horny, baby?"
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the first one that came to mind for me was Rodney Dangerfield, but yours was better.
Thanks.
So I don't know. I think that probably brings us to some business.
Yeah.
If you want to follow us, you can follow us on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/ItGetsWeirdPodcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers, from Stitcher to Google Play to Apple Podcasts to Spotify. If you listen to podcasts somewhere, look up It Gets Weird and we're probably there.
ItGetsWeirdPodcast@gmail.com. I think we asked a question up front with this episode and I don't remember what it was, but so just answer that, all right?
Yeah, I don't remember what it was either.
Don't make me beg, don't make me shout. Just answer that question in our email. Go for it. Go crazy.
It's really fun when we get like, and here's the thing, when you're answering this week's question, do not reference the question itself. Just give us the answer to see how long it takes us to remember what the fuck.
Oh Jesus, no, please. Actually, you know what? That's a good thing to mention. If you ever do email us, please tell us if you're going to answer one of our dumbass questions in this show. Please tell us what you're referencing because I will not remember.
We have had a couple people in the Discord that are like, I was listening to this old episode and with like no context, just like answer the big question of the week. And I'm just like,
when people ask me about a thing that I talked about like 3+ weeks ago, I'm just like, I don't remember what I said.
Yeah.
I probably said something fucked up.
Hey, until we get big enough for someone, not me, to make a wiki, some context is helpful for us.
Fair. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We have a $2 tier and a $5 tier. At the $2 tier, we are running a show. Jesus, Kyle, get it together. We have a show called It Gets Weird TV where we actually just recently put up a poll. We finished It Gets Weird TV coverage of Gravity Falls. We're going to watch a new weird show, and the community who donates at the $2 plus tiers gets to vote on what show we're going to watch.
By the time this goes up, the voting will have ended. But we don't know what but we can't announce the show this week.
But
it's
if you want to in the future vote on that, that's where you're going to want to donate. And if you want more than just It Gets Weird TV, we also have a $5 tier where at that tier you're getting It Gets Weird TV plus another bonus show that comes in the off week of It Gets Weird TV. So you're getting bonus content every single week. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to our mainline episodes 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday, and access to our Discord where we're hanging out, talking about stuff. People are referencing things from the show that I have completely forgotten, things like that. We also have a $1 tier, which is just a tip. You don't get anything out of it. You're just saying, hey, I want to support your show. Here's $1 a month. So thank you for doing what you do. If you can't donate, please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast.
Thank you all for listening. Keep sharing the word of the show. Tell all your friends. Tell a weird friend about It Gets Weird. This has been the podcast. Thank you for listening. I've been Niall.
And I'm Kyle signing out.
Peace.